So once you actually spin up a domain, and you should have multiple domains, like have it's like a portfolio, if you want to think of it that way. Some domains are going to do really well, some are going to get trashed. Like, what's your plan if something gets trashed? Do you keep sending on it? Most are, but most also have no idea that their domain has been compromised in the first place.
Joel, it's great to have you on Outsource to Profits. Do you mind telling everybody your company and a little bit about yourself before we get into the topic of the week?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Joel Graber, CEO of Modern Outbound and Modern Inbound, primarily helping companies, their growth teams, chief revenue officers, VPs of sales, marketers, build a really good growth engine that scales.
Fantastic. Let me pose the topic through a story. I've owned 3 agencies. In my second agency, we wanted to be really overt about going outbound because my first agency, Sales for Life, was 100% inbound machine. So it was time to build a different muscle. Now, what we didn't understand was email marketing at scale. My company, Pipeline Signals, we bought ConvertKit, we started warming up domains, and then we went crazy. We had this massive email database from our Sales for Life days, centered around chief revenue officers, chief marketing officers. And I woke up one day and customers weren't getting my email. And then we were getting bounce backs. And then we were getting complaints that customers were sending us emails and we didn't even see these emails. I spent an entire year and $100,000 of different agencies in what we'll call email purgatory. Now, fast forward to today. I am watching our customers, and I constantly have this conversation where I don't think the average company recognizes what their BDRs and SDRs have done has absolutely decimated the value, the intellectual, we'll call it almost like the intellectual property of their email domains of the company. And now the whole company has been put in this purgatory where their messages, even at the customer success level and finance, trying to reach out to customers for accounts payable, and it is devastating companies. So Joel, do you mind diving in a little bit, kind of left brain, right brain? Let's get into the science of it so founders who listen to this understand what this means to your business. And then we're going to focus tactically on how we solve this problem.
Yeah, happy to. It's a big topic that is becoming much more front and center these days. I think people are finally waking up to the common mishaps of email deliverability. Most of the time when I work with marketers, growth teams, VPs of sales and their team, they're sending from their primary domain. All their reps and are sending 30, 40 emails a day across 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 reps. It really adds up. And if you get a few grumpy people on the other side that move you to spam, that's going to compromise your email deliverability for your day-to-day transactional emails. And I'm still seeing, shockingly, companies do that. I think the other big issue is they have a general IT team that's well-intentioned, but they don't quite understand the nuances of email deliverability, even on a basic level of authenticating your domains, having a diverse set of domains that are well-aged. I still see companies sending from brand new domains that they bought on GoDaddy last week. There's blacklists that literally look for the age of a domain, and if it's under a certain age, you're not getting into the party, you're going right to spam. So it's a huge waste of time, it's a waste of effort. And what's worse is they then decide, all right, well, outbound might not be for us. Cold email is probably a bad channel. After you dig in a little bit, you recognize that it's just the configuration, and your well-intentioned IT team just didn't know what they were doing. I also think that there's a lack of maintenance. So once you actually spin up a domain, and you should have multiple domains, like have it's like a portfolio, if you want to think of it that way. Some domains are going to do really well, some are going to get trashed. Like, what's your plan if something gets trashed? Do you keep sending on it? Most are, but most also have no idea that their domain has been compromised in the first place. So it's about having an intelligent, experienced IT person or deliverability pro, put it in place the right way, and then have someone on your team, if it's Rev Ops or Outbound Ops, which is now an up-and-coming role, really look at the sender score, the domain score. Are we having more issues sending from Google to Microsoft? Should we look at batching MX records, for example, like Microsoft to Microsoft, Google to Google? Should we set up a custom SMTP server? Should we rotate faster? Should we change the copy? Because oftentimes it's not just the technical stuff, it's actually the messaging sucks. And it's triggering spam, and there's spammy words in there. So it's a house of cards with deliverability, and I think it's getting much worse, and we need more experience.
So our audience, founders, chief revenue officers, chief marketing officers, a lot of times I can hear their eyes rolling as they listen to this. They're like, oh, this is so below my pay grade. Yet the outcomes are exactly what's feeding your ability to reach your sales targets, where you might be giving this information to your venture capital firm or to your private equity firm, or these are affecting you clipping coupons and dividends, putting them in your jeans. So this downstream effect has such an upstream consequence. So do you mind talking directly to that founder and say, I recognize you're not going to fix this, but number one, what are 1, 2, or 3 steps you could use to diagnose that you have this problem, like tactical for the layman? And number 2, what are some of the recommendations you would make if they discover this is a problem? These are your fast 3 or 5 things you could do to fix this problem.
I put them in 2 buckets. I would say there's the founder that isn't doing outbound. And I'm not sure if your question was referring to the founder that has a team doing outbound.
There's, our founders of all sorts. A lot of them are thinking they're doing outbound, but they're not. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's kind of like when my team has time, they'll send some prospecting emails. There's a lot of that. I think I talk to founders and I ask this question, it kind of, it sounds so simple, and it's almost, like you just said, it's below their pay grade. And they're like, well, I don't know. How many domains do I have? I'll ask them, how many domains do you have? Or what domain? Do you have secondary domains? Every founder should know the answer to that question. And if they don't know the answer, they need to go find it. And if they don't know the answer, it often means they don't have secondary domains.
And I'll make this tactical for everybody. So my domain at Get Levrg is .getleverage, a play on words, leverage.com. But we're doing email prospecting. I have 12 subdomains. They don't affect the main domain. My subdomains are mygetleverage.com or getleverage.ca. I'm a Canadian company, or .co or .net. And so it's derivatives of the original domain, and we're warming those up to become active, but they spoil like milk in the sun as well. And maybe as you're talking about those domains, talk about the life cycle of a domain. Yeah.
A life cycle of a domain could be a month, it could be 3 months, it could be, we have domains we've been running for clients for 2 years that have done really well and have great reputations in the market amongst the ESPs and the servers. But a domain could die a very fast death, and I think they're dying much faster. Like you just said, I think it's really important, and most people don't know this. Best practice, have secondary domains. If you're a founder, you should have 5 secondary domains that have .coms, .cos, nothing. The .cas or the .info or the .marketing, .ca might be okay.
You try to keep the .coms as best you can, long as you can't fall too far away and stray away from the original domain of your company's name. Yes. Otherwise, people will be totally confused from a product marketing standpoint.
Yeah, agreed. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes if you need to do outbound yesterday and you don't want to send it on new domains, we actually go to GoDaddy auction and we'll buy lookalike domains that are established, at least 1, 2, 3 plus years old. We'll set up subdomains under those. And it's not the core strategy, but we will run it for several of the campaigns. You'd be surprised if it starts to get traction and replies, they just see the first and last name. They're not really focused on the domain name itself. Although Google is now showing a lot of the full domain in its entirety. So that could hurt you, just be aware of it. Have secondary domains. You should have 5 of them at least. You should have, like you said, 2 or 3 subdomains on each of those domains. All of those should be running on a platform like MailReach or Instantly or Warmly. Sometimes have them on all platforms where they're increasing, or multiple platforms where they're increasing the traffic, artificially increasing the score by the network effect. And it also gives you a sender score. That's the easiest way to get a sender score. How many of those emails on MailReach, for example, are hitting spam? They're going to give you a score. If it's less than 80 or 70%, you got to do something about it. But the beauty of this is that you'll have backups. It's like a bullpen. You'll have pitchers in the bullpen that are warming up, they're ready to go. You can just tag them in. Most of the time, I talk to teams that just have one domain they're using, it gets trashed, they have to put outbound off for 2 months.
Fantastic. So can you maybe talk a little bit as we wrap up, a little bit about what your firm does and how you help the community?
Yeah, so outbound we stay in our lane with what we're good at, which is cold email and cold LinkedIn outreach. It's all the spokes on the wheel with data, A/B testing, messaging. I think the key with outbound now and what we really focus on in Modern Outbound is being extremely tactical. It's almost like a project manager job more than it's ever been. Like when we started 5 years ago, you could put one campaign in place with decent messaging and you get a 5, 6, 7% reply rate. That's just not going to happen anymore unless it's a very, very tight trigger-filled list. You're going to have a big portfolio of campaigns. So we're quite active with adding new ideas, campaigns to the mix, and increasing the volume on that so that you can scale it.
Yeah, and it continues to be more and more difficult. Like if I look at our results in the spring of this year, by week, 7%. When I mean 7%, it was 7% email sent to conversation rate. And then I have a percentage of meeting book rate. And then it just, or maybe I'm thinking of it backwards. I'll have to look at the data. I remember 7%, then 5%, then 4%. It's been getting more and more difficult. Doesn't mean we're giving up on it, because as long as there's a return on invested capital there at all, I'm a real big believer in the book Simple Profits or Simple Business. Getting a 50% return on invested capital, but it's becoming more difficult.
Yeah, it is. I would think about diversifying. For anybody listening, you should be running LinkedIn outreach. People will poo-poo that. It actually is very effective if it's used the right way and your messaging is really tight, concise, value-driven. I would also think about warming up your email campaigns. So if you have 10 cold campaigns, can you get 2 or 3 warm ones in there by your first degree, your new LinkedIn connections, by people that have engaged on posts, by people that have visited your site? Those warm campaigns can actually lift the boats for your cold campaigns. So if your cold campaigns are struggling, you introduce 2 or 3 warm ones, the cold ones might actually do better and get more inbox placement.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the number one source of meetings booked for outbound.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think that's going to get even bigger. And we're running conversation ads on LinkedIn, by the way, which it's underutilized. I think people are finally learning more about it. Very effective. They're clickable CTAs. You've got to put some ad spend into it. But, for Modern Outbound, we get 30, 40 lead form fillers, like legit decision makers a month, just from minimal spend on combo ads. So I look into that too.
That's fantastic. Well, Joel, thank you so much for being on the show. And how do people get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I post pretty regularly there. Check me out at modernoutbound.com or moderninbound.co and connect with me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.